This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.
Hi, I'm Madi Ruby. I was diagnosed with a meningioma in 1995 when I was 23 years old. And going back into sort of why that happened in the first place, I was doing quite a lot of driving, getting to and from my job at that point in time. And I kind of just initially put some of the symptoms down to just being tired or work stress. One particular day, I'd answered a phone call for my boss, and my writing came backwards when I was trying to leave a note on his desk on a post-it note. And I kind of thought, whoa, that's a bit weird. But kind of when you're 23 years old, you just don't really think there's going to be anything massively wrong with you. And so kind of just noticed that as a little thing. I didn't really think much more about it. I then was starting to have numbness and pins and needles in my right arm. And I put that down to, because we always do this, we always explain symptoms away, I think. And I put that down to the fact that it was kind of summer and I was leaning my elbow on the windowsill of the car as I was driving. And then one day, I was driving along a particular road, and all the traffic slowed to a halt. Luckily, it was a bit of a traffic jam, so everyone was going slowly, and I couldn't feel my right foot, so I couldn't get my foot onto the brake. And the only way that my car slowed to a halt was because it went between two other rows of traffic and did quite a bit of damage, obviously, to other people's vehicles. But I kind of thought, this isn't right, something's not right here. And then very soon afterwards, I started to have really bad headaches, and I started to be feeling really tired and throwing up in the morning, and just felt really, really weird. So I went to my GP, and I was very, very lucky that the GP that I saw was at the time quite an older gentleman. And I went and described my symptoms to him. And I remember him looking a bit concerned and saying to me, yeah, symptoms, I'm sure it's nothing, but I think we'd probably better get you a CT scan just to rule out. And I remember going back out to my car and crying, and just knowing at that point that something was going to be really, really wrong. So I was referred for a CT scan at that point. It was the local hospital, which was when I was living down south, so it was in Chertsey. And I remember probably only a couple of weeks after my doctor's appointment going for the CT scan, and even lying down, trying to lie in the CT scanner, feeling really, really nauseous and having to sit back up and throw up into a nice glamorous puke bowl, and just not knowing what on earth was going on, but knowing that something was going to be badly wrong. And I went to the GP on my own because I didn't think that there was going to be anything wrong. I didn't tell anybody how worried I was, because I didn't want to make it real by telling anybody how worried I was. And I remember after I was given the diagnosis, which was unfortunately the scan does show a tumour, and I remember hearing brain tumour and pretty much not hearing anything else after that, other than going into this really weird professional mode of, oh yes, thank you, let me write that down, what happens next, and then putting the phone down and just literally staring out of the window, just thinking, oh my god, how long have I got? And that was really scary and lonely. But because I was living away from, so I'd finished uni and just not knowing what to do, just not knowing how to cope, other than just going, right, no, this is going to be fine, I'm just going to be okay. Denial, I think, is the word, isn't it, technically? They said that I would be going to Atkinson Morley's to have surgery, and it was a long wait, and it must have been a couple of weeks waiting. And I went back to work, and everyone was like, what the hell are you doing here? I felt like I was in a weird tunnel of not knowing what was going on at all. And I wouldn't even describe it as feeling confused, just stunned. And because I was so young, I think I know I'm very, very different now, and I guess that's partly to do with the repeated experiences. But I felt like I had to be a good girl and well behaved and on my best behaviour and not ask any questions, and just put my faith and trust in that it would be all right. They believed they got it all out. They sent me home, and unfortunately I then had a cerebrospinal fluid leak and a fever. And they wouldn't take me back to start off with. I then had to go to the local hospital, back to St. Peter's, and they were very much like, whoa, what, we can't do anything with you. You need to go back to Atkinson Morley's. And I got ambulance transferred after, I think, a night in hospital. My mum was with me at this point. This is probably a week or so after the initial surgery. And I was in the ambulance when I very luckily had my first seizure, which was actually, and that was even more, do you know what? This might sound really weird, but that was in some ways even more terrifying than having been through the diagnosis and having the brain surgery in the first place, because I was conscious throughout the whole seizure. I was literally thinking, oh my God, I didn't know it was a seizure. I didn't know why my muscles in my abdomen were clenching and releasing. It looked like the creature from Alien was about to burst out through my abdomen. And at that point, because it was the first ever one, I was like, what the is happening? I went to see a fantastic epilepsy specialist called Professor Laysander at the National Society for Epilepsy, and we changed the medication. Then lived my life until then 2013, when I was on holiday with my then 7-year-old son and my hubby. We went to Cyprus, and I could not read. I normally on a holiday take a case full of novels and just love it. I couldn't read, and I just felt really awful, and I couldn't get myself into the swing of it as much as I kind of tried to, as much as a lovely place it was. And I'd had really bad headaches on the plane on the way there. And then I started projectile vomiting when we were partway through the holiday, and I thought something's not right here. Then really bad headaches and vomiting again when we got home. And then because I'm stubborn, I'm like, oh, I'll be better. It'll be an infection. It'll be bloody, what's it? And then one morning, I got out of bed and I was practically having to crawl to the bathroom, feeling absolutely dire. And I said, I feel like I'm dying or something. Or my son said, you look like you're dying. And he said, I think you should go and see the doctor, Mum. So I did. So he has credit for getting me to do that and saving me. Yeah. So that's when. My GP here, because we'd moved in between times. We moved partly because of my epilepsy. I was very isolated, couldn't drive, couldn't get out with my lovely little boy to get to places. So we moved closer to home, as in my family home. And we moved into the town centre so that I could get around to shops and things like that, which is great. I'm jumping around here. So I went to the GP, and he asked me, had I ever had symptoms and felt this way before? And it kind of I clicked in me, and I went, yeah, actually. And brilliant. So it's the best question he could ever have asked. And he's amazing. He's a brilliant GP. And he said, no, it probably won't be anything, but let's get you a scan. And we're very fortunate to have an excellent local hospital where they have CT scanners. And I was probably in the scanner within the next week or so. And I knew something was wrong when the radiologist came and sat down on the scanning table and said, have you ever had any CT scans anywhere before? And I thought, where do you want to start? Then it was only a couple of weeks later that the GP called, the GP surgery called and said, can you come in for an appointment with the GP? And even still, the denial thing can be so powerful, because my husband said to me, do you want me to come with you? And I said, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. And he told me that not only had they found recurrence of tumour, but they'd found lots of other meningiomas. Well, they thought what they thought were meningiomas as well. And he asked me where I would like to be referred. And I picked the Walton Centre because I already knew that they had lots of research programmes and things involved. And they just took out the 4.5 centimetre one, and the others were all watch and wait. And then when the what's it called? Histology came back on the second one, it's grade 2. Must have been 2021 or whatever. It started. This particular one started growing again, and it then grew quite quickly, and it became ready that it needed to come out as well. And it's also the parafalcine, that one, third one was also grade 2, but that's when they fished out lots more as well. My lovely surgeon, Mr. Olabaju, did a good clear out, did a bit of hoovering. Both my previous surgeon, Miss McMahon, and Mr. Olabaju have both said, the dura just doesn't look normal, and my skull doesn't look normal either. So they're just, keeping a watch and wait. But it's like the right word. Yeah. I want to talk about it because, it shows it is possible to live for very long times. And I mean, I remember after 2013, I did get a bit of an infection then when they were talking about taking that piece of bone out then. And I was no, I need to carry on. I need to let's see if this can, we can make it work, because I was terrified about having the bone out because of the real disfiguring nature of it. And my surgeon at the time, absolutely fantastic woman, said, it won't be as bad as you think if it happens. And I still think back to that now, and she's right. It's amazing what you can live with. Yeah, so feel like having that first tumour, I would never wish that experience on anybody else. But having had that experience, I also wouldn't change it, because it's given me an awareness of, and a compassion and empathy for people that I might not have had I not had that experience, if that makes sense. So I wanted to use my experience to kind of help other people. So as a result of it, I did, after I'd had my son, I retrained, and I used to work in the commercial sector, and I retrained to become a counsellor and a psychotherapist. And just that whole thing about, if there's an opportunity to share my story and it makes a difference even to one person in the future, because it definitely wouldn't be making any difference to me now, but if it makes a difference for people in the future, both to the treatment that they might receive for their actual tumours and or to the support services that are available, then why would I not do it? So for me, had a huge amount of support from Brain Tumour Research, and I did some fundraising for them. I did their 10,000 steps one year, and I raised quite a significant amount of money. And they do a thing where you get to go and visit their research centres of excellence and put little tiles on the wall to mark the contribution, and met lots of other really amazing survivors there as well, which was a real honour and a privilege. And then Brains Trust, when I was really kind of lost because I couldn't find any information on retiring due to ill health, how to even think about that, how to even make that decision, could I afford it? And I had a big thing about not giving up. I wanted to keep going. And lots of people have said over the years, I'm really inspirational because I've pivoted so many times and changed careers and, got my PhD, all of these kind of things. So I felt really bad, guilty, ashamed about the idea of retiring early, and all the things that our inner critics say to us about being lazy, and if I could only try harder I'd be able to carry on, and all of those kind of things. So Brains Trust had coaching with Brains Trust, and some support in terms of helping look at financial decision making and that kind of stuff, and they've been absolutely outstanding. And I look back and I think, why did I not know about those things in 1995 or 2013? And what was it suddenly that made me in 2022 find that information? And they're there, and people are so warm and welcoming and caring and helpful. It's kind of like that, they're saying about it's a club you never want to be a member of. One of the things that I found hardest after my 2013 diagnosis, because by this point I had my own little child. He was about 6-7 years old at the time, and we decided that we obviously wanted to be open and honest with him, because children have a way of knowing when something's wrong, even when they're not told. Sometimes not saying something can leave them with all sorts of even worse and more horrifying fears in their mind than if we're open and honest with them. So we mentioned that obviously he'd seen, and as I mentioned earlier, that he'd noticed I wasn't feeling well, so he'd even suggested that I went to the doctor. So we told him that I had been to the doctor, and just made it really, really simple for, it's obviously important to be age appropriate. So just said that, that mummy has a brain tumour, and it isn't, in my case, I was fortunate, it isn't cancer. There will be an operation and I'll be ill and unwell for a bit, but hopefully gradually I'll get better. And he just popped off and did the next thing, which he let kids do. They're off playing, it doesn't have to be a long conversation, and you just have to be there whenever they are ready to talk about it. And I remember one day after I'd had surgery, being in the local play area with him, and another little boy saying, "You come and play football with us too," to me, and Luca, my little boy, saying, No, don't get her to at the moment. She's not feeling very well. She's just had brain surgery." So he got it and understood. And a friend of ours had taken Luca and her son out for a day, and they were just the two boys were having a chat in the back of the car, and my friend said she went absolutely stone cold one moment when her son turned to Luca and said, "So, is your mum going to die then?" And her heart missed a beat until Luca just turned around and said, No, she's getting all of the right treatment and the medical professionals are doing everything right, so it should be fine. So it didn't upset him because he'd had the information to know about, I think, in that sense. That's not to say that now he doesn't still worry about me. I know that even at uni, if he knows that I'm tired or feeling under the weather, it does bother him and he cares. But he also knows that the most important thing for me is that if anything ever did go bad and I died, not necessarily from a brain tumour, but from anything else, because anything can happen in our lives, that the most important thing for me is that he moves on and lives his own life and is as happy as he can be. I just want to say thank you to everybody that has been involved in my journey from diagnosis through all of the surgeries. Mr. Henry Marsh, my first surgeon, Miss Catherine McMahon, my second surgeon, Mr. Farouk Olabaju, my latest surgeon, and he will laugh if he hears me saying, obviously the best, he will get it. And of course, all my family and friends, in particular, my wonderful husband, Neil, who has been my absolute rock and continues to be my love of my life and my inspiration, and to Luca, my son, who I could not be more proud of and love more.
This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.